All right, so getting started here. Sorry. So if you have tangent of 30 degrees is about 0.58. Okay, so you plugged in tangent of 30 into your calculator, you get about 0.58. Then it follows that if the tangent of an acute angle is 0.58, then the angle measure has to be 30. Okay, so say you had tangent of a variable. So you have tangent of x instead of tangent of your angle. And that was equal to 0.58. We could figure out that that angle was 30 degrees. So the inverse of a trig ratio is finding the angle measure given that trig ratio. So what we're doing today, is to find the angles, not the sides of your right triangle. Okay, so most of you will use the second key or the shift key on your calculator to find this inverse function. Okay, so this is for your calculator. Okay, this is to find the measure of the angle. Okay, so if you're ever looking for the measure of an angle in a right triangle, you're using that second or shift button to get your inverse. So if I have sine of A equals x, then it follows that sine inverse of x equals the measure of angle A. When you see this little -1 attached to one of your three trig functions here, that means inverse. Okay, it does not mean it's raised to the negative first power. It's an inverse. So how they're doing this, if I start with sine of A equals x. Okay, and say I want to find A. Okay, I'm solving for capital A there. What they're doing is bringing in this sine inverse to both sides of that equation. Okay, so you're bringing in that sine inverse to both sides. What it does over here is it cancels out both of those. Okay, so you're left with A is equal to the sine inverse of x. Okay, so you can solve for that A value or that angle measure. Now that's the same for each of these, for cosine and tangent as well. You're just bringing in that inverse of that function to both sides. So, going through an example, okay, we want to find the indicated angle measure to the nearest tenth. So here we want to find angle A. Okay, so I'm going to circle angle A. That's my variable, that's what I'm looking for. Now, just like before, you're going to go from your angle and decide which sides you have. So from this angle, you have the opposite. Okay, it's the one across, so I'm going to label it with an O. And I have the side that's across from that 90-degree angle, which is what? Hypotenuse. Okay, your hypotenuse is always across from that 90-degree angle. So I have O and H. Now remember we were using SOHCAHTOA before. So we knew which one of those three trig ratios to use. Sine, cosine, or tangent. So given this triangle, I have O and H. Which one am I going to use? Sine. I'm going to use this one. So, I'm going to take the sine. Now, I don't know the angle measure, right? That's my variable. So, I'm just going to say sine of angle A. That is equal to your ratio of sides. So, the opposite side is 18 over the hypotenuse is 27. Okay? Now to get A by itself, you're not dividing by sine. you're doing what we did up here. You're bringing in a sine inverse to both sides of your equation. Okay, so I'm going to bring in sine inverse here and sine inverse here. Okay, again, that negative first means inverse. So on the left-hand side, those cancel. So we have A is equal to the sine inverse of this fraction 18 over 27. Now you can enter this into your calculator. So again, take out your calculator. So looking here, can you see my calculator okay? All right. So we're taking sine inverse. So like up at the top, I said you're going to use the second or shift key on your calculator. So you're going to press second. Now we're using sine, right? I'm going to press the sine button. If you notice above that, it has that little sign to the negative first. That's your sine inverse. And then you're going to take that quantity of 18 over 27 and end your parenthesis. And then press enter. You got it?
Yeah, this calculator's easy. It's hard. Maybe like 6 different steps to find the answer.
So for angle A, we'll get, that angle is about 41.8 degrees, since we're rounding to that nearest tenth. Okay, not too bad. If you have a different calculator, unlike this one, you're going to take your fraction. So you're going to take 18, divide by 27, press equals. Okay? Then you're going to press second or shift, then sine inverse. And I think it should show up then. All right, questions on how I did one? All right, then number 2, we want to solve for the measure of angle B. So this time, I'm going from this angle. So I'm going to circle that angle. That's the angle I want to go from. Now I want to label my sides. From that angle, if I go straight across, I have this side that's labeled as 20. What is that side? Opposite. Good. Now I have a side that's over here. What is this side? Adjacent. Good. So I have O and A. And I'm going to use tangent. Okay? Since tangent has O and A, that's the one I want to use. So I'm going to take tangent, the angle I was going from. Now that's your variable. So you can either label it X, I'm just going to label it B. Okay? That's equal to your ratio of sides. So we have O, which is 20, over A is 6. Okay, bring in your tangent inverse. They cross out or cancel on the left side. So we have B is equal to tangent inverse of 20 over 6. And I again can plug that into my calculator. So here we're taking second. We're going to press tan this time. So we have tangent inverse that shows up. Then we have 20 over 6 and my parenthesis, press equals. Okay, so angle B is 73.3 degrees. Questions? Yeah. Yeah, you are. All right, do number 3, please. You're finding angle A. Do number 3.
Oh, we need to do it ourselves.
I didn't show my work though.
No.
Why would you answer your phone?
No. Put it away.
How do you do this calculator?
You would have to take your fraction, 18 divided by 27, press equals and get a decimal, and then press second, and then the sign. Okay. It's backwards. All right, number 3, since most of you, I think, have done that problem, we're looking at angle A. Okay, looking at angle A. We have the hypotenuse and the adjacent side. We have the hypotenuse and the adjacent side. So we're using cosine of our angle that we went from. It's A. That's equal to our ratio of sides, 3/15. Bring in the inverse to both sides. We have A is equal to cosine inverse of 3/15.
Oh, yes.
And that, like, 78.5 about.
So it is going to be 78.5 degrees.
78.5. Oh, got grease stains on my shoes, grease stains on my pants.
Questions? Questions? Not too bad? Yeah. It's not hard. It's not. I promise. It's not. So, we're moving to the back here. We're quiet, please. So, to solve a right triangle, that means you're finding all of the angle measures and all of the side measures of a right triangle. So, quiet. So number 4, we want to solve this right triangle. So we need to find the measure of angle X. We need to find the measure of angle Y. And the measure of angle Z. For our sides, we need to find XZ. We need to find ZY and YX. Now I'm going to fill in the stuff I already know into this chart. Well, I know the side XZ is 5. I know side ZY is 9. And what do I know about this angle? It's a right angle, which is how many degrees? 90 degrees. So angle Z is 90 degrees. You just need to find 3 things. Okay, it's not that bad. Relax. So first thing I'm going to do. I'm going to find this hypotenuse here. How can I find the hypotenuse? What's an easier way to find your hypotenuse? What did we do the first day that we learned in chapter 8? First thing we did. We learned the Pythagorean theorem. If you're given 2 sides of a right triangle, you can find the third using a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Okay? So here, your hypotenuse is c, right? So I can take 5 squared plus 9 squared is equal to h squared. So I can use everything that we have done so far to solve this right triangle. We are quiet, please. 5 squared, 25, plus 9 squared is 81, equals h squared, which is 106. You take the square root of both sides, and that h value will be about 10.3. Okay? I'm going to say 10.3. So now xy, or yx, that length, I can write in my table here as 10.3. Now I need to find the angles. Okay, if you're finding the angles of a right triangle, you're doing the inverse. That's what we just did on the front. So, first one I want to do, I'm just going to look at x first. I am not going to use the side that I rounded for. Okay, you want it more exact, don't use the side that you rounded for. So, I have, from that angle, we are quiet. From that angle, I have an opposite side, and I have an adjacent side. So I have O and A. Which one is that? Tangent. So I'm taking tangent of x, because I'm looking at that angle. That's equal to the opposite side is 9 over the adjacent side is 5. Okay, you bring in the inverse. They cancel on the left. So we have x is equal to the tangent inverse of 9 over 5. And you can plug that into your calculator. $60.9. You're welcome. Okay, so angle x will be 60.9 degrees. Now, for angle y. Okay, Siri. So angle y, two ways. Two ways you can find angle y. First way, you can do the inverse again, but you're going to go from angle y this time. And you'd go opposite over adjacent. Okay, so that would be tangent of y. Your opposite side is 5. Over your adjacent is 9. Bring in your inverse, so you get y is equal to tangent inverse of 5 over 9. And you get your answer. Now second way. Second way. Shh, please be quiet. If x is 60.9 and you have z is 90, all three of your angles in a triangle have to add to 180. So you can take 180 minus 90 minus 60.9 to get your last angle. So it is 29.1 degrees. What time is it? You'll be fine.
And Saturday is homecoming.
I know.
And I have
And Sunday.
And Sunday.
I think
And Sunday's is hangover day.
No.
No. Recovery day, basically. Oh yeah. What?
I have my child Jesus.
All right, we are quiet. We're quiet. I'm not done yet. That doesn't mean you get to talk to each other. You need to stop and you need to pay attention. Number 5. We're doing the same process. We have to find all the angles and all the sides. So we have already angle P. We also need to find angle R and angle Q. For your sides, we need to find PQ. We need to find QR. And we need to find RP. Now I want to go through that table and I want to put in what I already know. Okay? I know angle Q is 90. I know angle R is 33. And I know side PQ is 16. Now, in the last problem, when we were trying to find angle Y, and we already had two angles, what did I say all three had to add to? 180. So if I already have two angles, what can I do to find angle P? Add them and subtract by 180. So we could just take 180 minus 90 minus 33. That is 57. Okay? Now I want to find those remaining sides. Okay? So I'm going to label this side X and this side Y, just to make it a little bit easier. I'm going to go from this angle. Okay, I need to use my trig ratios for this problem. So you can use either of these two angles. I'm just going to use 33. So we have a side across, which is the across opposite. And if I want to find X first, what is that side labeled? Adjacent. I didn't put R. This is an X. So I have an O and an A. I'm going to use tangent. Okay, so I'm using tangent. And I'm going from this angle. So I'm taking tangent of 33. That's equal to your ratio of sides. So I have opposite is 16 over the adjacent is X. Or you could label it as lowercase a for adjacent. That's fine. Now with these ones, you're not taking the inverse. Okay? You're only taking the inverse if you're finding an angle. You're already given an angle in this problem. You're finding a side. So this is where you multiply by whatever is in your denominator. Okay? So they cancel out over here. So we have X times the tangent of 33 is equal to 16. To get X by itself, you're going to divide by tangent of 33. So they cancel here. So we have X is equal to 16 over tangent of 33, and you can plug that into your calculator to find QR. Okay, so QR up here will be 24.6. Now I need to solve for that last side there, okay, where I labeled Y. So I'm going to use 33 again and set up my trig ratios. So from this angle, again, I have the opposite. And then what's this side? Hypotenuse. So I have O and H. which is sine. I'm going to use the angle I went from is 33. That's equal to that ratio of sides, so O is 16 over H is Y, or again you could use H. What do I do next? Multiply. I'm multiplying by whatever's in the denominator, which is Y. They cancel out over here. So we have Y times the sine of 33 is equal to 16. We'll divide both sides by sine of 33. They cancel here. So I'm left with Y is equal to 16 over the sine of 33. And again, I can put that into the calculator. Yeah.
Can you just just know what QR is and PQ? Can you just do H perpendicular? I got the same answer doing it. Yes, much more sense.
Yeah, you can use the Pythagorean theorem to find that last side too. So here we have 29.4 as our final side. So when you're solving that right triangle, you have to find all the angles and all the sides. So you can apply the Pythagorean theorem, you can apply your trig ratios and the inverse of your trig ratios to find all of those. Okay? Any questions?